All right, today's webinar, Windows 10 Virtual Desktops. There's some really new kind of neat features in Windows 10, and virtual desktops is one of those, and we're going to take a look at that now. Uh, First, what I want you to do is look at the picture on the screen, and you'll see two desktop monitors. Now, this is how I have my main computer set up in the office, two monitors. And the nice thing is I can put different programs on different monitors, just like you see in this example. So I can have my Outlook, which is my email, that could be in one monitor. And then in the other monitor, I could do things like word searches, I could do, or Google searches, I could do Photoshop or different things that I wanted. And instead of having to close and open or reduce windows to the taskbar, I can simply go back and forth between the two monitors. And I can slide one window from one monitor to the other, and that's where it'll appear, and that's where I can work on it. And that's a very good feature to have. It's kind of neat to be able to do that. So that's something that you can do if you have two monitors, and that's kind of neat. Except a couple things you have to think about. Number one, if you have a desktop, another monitor means more money. If you want to get them big enough, it takes up more room. So as you can see in the picture, that it's going to take up more room simply because I now have two monitors. So those are the kind of negative things about it. It takes up more room. It's more expense. If you have a laptop, of course, how do you add a second monitor to the laptop easily? Certainly can't do that if you're sitting in the airport or something and want to get on your laptop. So in Windows 10, um, Microsoft has put something in that a lot of other operating systems like Mac has had for a while, Linux has had, is something called virtual desktops. So that's what we're going to look at today. And the first thing we're going to do is I have a little picture up, and you can see the arrow pointing. At the bottom of the Windows 10 taskbar is this little icon. It's much easier to see in the picture than it is actually on my computer. So we're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to tell you that that's the way that you get to the virtual desktop. So let me explain just for a second what the virtual desktop does. It takes the place of having two or more monitors. For instance, on my main computer, I could have up to four monitors if I wanted it. So that's kind of neat, but it's it's tough to deal with, again because of space and again because of cost. So what a virtual desktop does, it allows you to use the computer with one monitor. It allows you to use it as multiple monitors. So we're going to take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to put this picture down, and at the bottom, I'm going to click, and you will see, got to look kind of closely here. You will see right now that there are two things up on the screen. Those are two pictures, and that's all on the same desktop. Right now, I'm only using one desktop. If you look closely in the right-hand corner at the bottom, and I'll try to go slow here. I was going to try to make the mouse pointer a little bigger for you, but I wasn't able to do that quick enough. So if you look in the right-hand corner, you can see a plus sign that says New Desktop. So I'm going to click on that. And if you look in the center now, you'll see there are two desktops showing, Desktop 1 and Desktop 2. On Desktop 1, I have my photos that I was bringing up to show you. If I go back to the icon and I click on desktop 2, there is nothing open on desktop 2 except the desktop. So I'm going to open some things to show you more easily what the difference is. So right now I'm going to open Google Chrome. I'm right now on desktop 2, and you can see that Google Chrome is open. I'm going to go back to my icon. I'm going to go back to desktop 1, and this time I'm going to open Microsoft Edge. So now we have something to look at. If I go back to the icon, I can see down here on desktop 1 that I have 3 things open, 2 photos and Microsoft Edge, which is on 4KCC. If I look down at desktop 2 and move my mouse there, I can see the only thing I have open is the Google Chrome browser on Google. So there's 2 desktops. The very cool thing is we're not limited to just 2. So now I'm going to go, I click on the icon again at the bottom. I'm going to go over to New Desktop. I now have a 3rd desktop. This time I'm going to open Firefox so that you can see an example. Okay, here's Firefox. Let's get on a different web page just so we can see so that we can see the difference when we take a look, since we're already on 4KCC on one of them. All right, so now we're on one of Joyce's websites. Again, if I go down to the icon, I can see at the bottom in the middle, I can see there are 3 desktops open. Desktop 3, which has Joyce's on. If I look at desktop 2, that's the Google Chrome. If I put the mouse on desktop 1, we can see that we have Microsoft Edge and 2 photos open on that desktop. Now, let's think about a minute, why would you want these virtual desktops? And there are 4 basic reasons. The first one is, which we've already sort of talked about, it gives you more desktop space so that you can group related programs on the same desktop. So for instance, if you were doing something that you needed to have like 4 or 5 programs or pages open that were all related, you could put those on one desktop and do everything else on another. Another reason for virtual desktop is to help you quickly locate and switch to any window or group of windows. So you can see by going to that icon, I can just by moving my mouse, I could switch from desktop to desktop. And once I switch to that, all I have to do is left click on it and it brings it up. The third reason that you'd use a virtual desktop, it lets you easily reorganize your group and move windows as tasks involve. So let me give you an example here. I'm going to go back to the 3 desktops at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to look at, let me go to the number 1, which I have these 2 photos open. Now let's say for some reason you say, you know what, I want to move this photo with the KCC logo on. I want to move that from this desktop to desktop number 3, which is the same one that has Joyce's website. I don't have to go through any crazy maneuver or anything at all. All I have to do is left click and hold down, and now take my icon to desktop number 3, and that photo has now left desktop number 1, and it is now on desktop number 3, as you can see. Okay, so I can move it simply by going down. There it is on desktop number 3. So I can go down here and move windows in between. So here's another little thing. Let's open, let's go on desktop number 1, and I'm going to open Word. So I'll just open a blank Word document. So now if I go down to the icon, the task view, I can see on desktop number 1, I have a blank Word document open. I have Microsoft Edge with 4K CC open, and I have a photo. Let's say I want to take the Word document and I want to put it on its own desktop. I want to work with Word on the desktop. I can now left click and hold down, and instead of dragging to desktop 2 or 3, I'm going to drag over here to the plus sign for a new desktop. And desktop number 4 has been formed, created, and on it is my Word documents. So again, what this does, it helps me reorganize my groups as I'm working. And I can create as many virtual desktops as you want. The fourth reason to make virtual desktops, it keeps you in control of how much separation you want between the group windows. So again, if I was working with a bunch of Word documents, I could keep them all on one desktop. Then I wouldn't have to deal with moving them around or minimizing them or doing anything like that when I'm doing something else. Now, let's take a look at what happens. What happens if you decide, okay, I'm done with desktop 4. So I went to the task view icon, which is at the bottom, and here's desktop 4. I can now X out of it because there's an X right there, very convenient. So what do you think is going to happen to the Word document if I left it open and I X out? Let's take a look. Here's what happened. When I did that, it moved it to desktop 3, the last desktop that was open. So now I have desktop 1 open, which has Microsoft Edge and one photo. I have desktop 2. The only thing open in desktop 2 is Google Chrome. Now I have desktop 3, which has Firefox, Joyce's website, a photo, and document 1 in Word. If I X out of desktop number 3 without closing those, guess what happens? They all go to desktop number 2, and they keep going down the line. Now if you say, look, I want to close desktop number 2, but I don't want all this stuff going to the first desktop. So all you do then is you close each individual window that's open on desktop 2 until you're just back to the main desktop with your icons. And now I can go down here at the bottom and close desktop number 2, and I'm left with desktop number 1. So I went from having one desktop, I went all the way up to 4 desktops. I can move in between simply by dragging. I can start a brand new desktop, like right here we are in desktop number 1. If I go down to the task view and get the plus sign down here, if I wanted to take this photo and create a new desktop, I can drag it down to the plus sign and it will create its own desktop, and there is the photo by itself. Now, if you have a business, I think you could see where this would be very helpful. Because in business, you might be running Microsoft Outlook. In my case, I'll give myself as an example. I run Outlook. I also run Gmail for my personal email for things like the railroad lists and stuff that I'm on. So instead of keeping them on the same desktop where I might have to go back and forth between them, I don't look at the Gmail that often, but instead of closing it and opening it, I can simply put it on its own desktop and then simply switch desktops when I want to do it. All right, now, another thing about these desktops, and you're going to get this in the follow-up, I have a little PDF document, just like I've been doing for these Windows 10. There are desktop shortcuts. So I know you're not going to be able to see me on the desktop, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to create a new desktop without going to the icon at the bottom. And the way I do that is I'm going to hold down the Windows key. You should know what that is. That's the key. It's usually in the left-hand corner at the bottom of your keyboard, and it looks like it has a window with 4 panes on it. That's the Windows key. I'm going to hold that down. I'm also going to hold down the Control key. That's the CTRL, also lower left-hand corner. And now I'm going to click on the letter D for desktop. And as soon as I did that, you saw that my screen changed and I was on a new desktop with nothing open. If I go down to task view again, you can now see I have 2 desktops, desktop number 1 and desktop number 2, which has nothing on it. The difference is I did that by a keyboard shortcut. The truth is you can also do the task view. Instead of going down to the icon, I can also do that with the keyboard shortcut. And that is holding down the Windows key and clicking the Tab key. And when I do that in the center, you can see that both desktops appear again, the same as if I had taken the mouse down to that icon. There are 2 more shortcuts. Let's say I wanted to, let's go back to desktop number 2, and let's just open something on desktop number 2. I'll open Safari on desktop number 2. Now, if I wanted to close desktop number 2, I could simply go down to the task view, as I showed you a few minutes ago, and go down to the bottom. Hang on. I could go down to the bottom, and I could hit that X. But we also have a shortcut for that. While I'm on this desktop, if this is the one that I want to close, I hold down the Windows key, the Control key, and F4, and it will close. Hang on just a second. It will close the desktop for us. So the same as doing that, it closes the desktop by using Win plus Control plus F4. And then the last sort of keyboard shortcut you can have, and in order to do that, I've got to open another one. So I've got number 2 back, and let's see here. Now we'll go this. I'll create another desktop, and let's open a third one so we have more than 2. Okay, the next keyboard shortcut, the last keyboard shortcut for virtual desktops is using the Win key, the Control key, and the left or right arrow. By using those, I can simply scroll back and forth between the 3 desktops. I don't have to click anywhere with my mouse. I simply hold down the Win key, the Control key, and I use my left and right arrow keys. And you can see that I'm going from one to the next, and then back again. So those are the shortcuts. You'll get those. You didn't have to spend time writing them down. You'll get those with the follow-up. So that's a virtual desktop, and that's something that is new in Windows 10. We had some virtual desktops sort of available as add-ons in earlier versions of Windows, but it wasn't really a big feature. This is. Now, I talked about businesses. You can probably understand how a business might use this, but you might be saying, look, I just do email and surf the internet. Why would I use a virtual desktop? Well, really kind of the same reasons. You might have your email and keep it open on a virtual desktop, and then create a new one and do your Googling and your Binging and all your searching on the other one. Meanwhile, your email is there all the time. You don't have to close it. You don't have to minimize it. It's just sitting on the desktop, and you can go back and forth between the 2. Very easy to do, and it's a very neat application. Now, here's one thing you do have to keep in mind. Suppose you say, okay, great, I'm going to create 20 desktops. That would be kind of neat. You could have like 20 desktops with one application open on every one or a couple applications open on them. And you absolutely can do it. Windows 10 will allow you to do it. But here's one thing you do have to remember. If you get excessive desktops with a lot of applications open, you are going to consume your computer's memory or RAM. And then what will happen is everything will slow down. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you create 20 desktops, virtual desktops, and then open a bunch of programs on them, because your computer really will slow down. And the only way to get that memory back, by the way, is to turn your computer off for a couple minutes, not restart, off. So this is a neat thing. What I want you to do is I want you to play with it. If you already have Windows 10, you should start and play with virtual desktops. See how easy it is to transfer something from one desktop to the other. See how easy it is to go back and forth. If you haven't upgraded Windows 10 yet, which we have one more webinar, which is on Thursday, that's at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's going to be about uh, talking to your computer with Windows 10, and I think that should be very interesting also. So if you haven't installed Windows 10 yet, you might want to wait until you see that one. Hopefully you've already seen the first two we did last week, or if you haven't seen them, you have a chance to go to 4kcc.com/webinars and scroll down to the bottom and see those on the bottom. And then the last thing is, I'd just like to remind you that there is if they're here in the Treasure Coast, there is a seminar this Saturday. Our usual, we're starting up again in September, 10 to 12 noon. It's $8 a person. It's at Trinity United Methodist Church. If you're able to be with us, that would be great. And we're going to have some fun with that. We will do some Windows 10. It's not all on Windows 10 because we do have Mac users and other people that come. So that's it for now. Joyce is telling me that we don't have any questions at this point. So I'm going to say once again, thank you for joining, and look for the follow-up in the next couple of days. You'll get my notes. You'll be able to see this webinar again. In the meantime, again, if you have Windows 10, start playing with those virtual desktops. Thanks and have a great afternoon.